Well, I don't know about you, but I think it's time for another fountain pen shootout. And today I'm going to talk about two pens which are the same and yet they are different. And I'm talking about the Lamy 2000M and the regular 2000. The difference is that the 2000 came first. It's made of macrolon type of plastic, I think. And the 2000M, which was launched later, and this is made of metal. It's a lot heavier than the macrolon version. But what are these two pens about? Well, the basic pen was designed in 1966 by Gerhard Müller. It's typically Bauhaus. Its form follows function. It's very a simple pen. It has some nice features. First of all, the clip. I like that. It's spring-loaded, so that's a good thing. It has an ink window, which allows you to see the ink level. It has a macrolon body, of course, and a metal section, which is pleasant to hold. And it's a piston filler. The metal version has some features that are the same. The spring-loaded clip. The ink window is gone, which on the one hand it's a pity, on the other hand it's I guess it might have looked out of place a little. And it is again a piston filler. In my review of this pen, I told you that the piston turning knob is a little bit loose, I found a solution which was suggested by Dan from FB Geeks. He said, well, you should just over tighten it a little bit. So what you do is, instead of just screwing it like this and then saying, well, it's done, you just give it a little bit of more, you twist it a little bit further, and then you should be fine, and it's in there pretty tightly. Okay, so the two pens, are they any different? Well, yes, they give you a very different writing experience, because the metal version is really heavy at 54 grams. I don't know what the macrolon version weighs, but it's a lot lighter, I can tell you that. So that's different. As to size, well, it's basically the same pen, right? We did do some measurements, and we did find that the metal version is just a little bit wider. It's really, there's almost no difference, but I think you can see it, and it's not an optical illusion, it's really true. So I don't know how they did this. Maybe they took the macrolon version and covered it with metal or whatever. In any case, just the metal version is a little bit wider. Apart from that, the differences are almost non-existent, apart from the absence of the ink window. It's the same pen, same shape, it has the same feel to it, as far as I can see, pretty much the same size, apart from the width issue. So that's all very nice. What about the writing? Well, I have an oblique broad on the regular 2000 and a regular broad on the 2000M. Oh, I just saw one. I just noticed one difference. On the back end of the cap, in the metal version it says Lamy, and on the macrolon version it does not. So writing experience is different, because the metal version is just a lot heavier, which makes it just different to use. It's not, I'm not sure whether it's better or worse, it's just very different. And if you don't like heavy pens, then don't even think about getting this, because it's really heavy and you really notice that in your hands. One issue I think that should be mentioned here is that the metal version is quite a bit more expensive than the macrolon version. I already covered that in my review of this pen. If you're interested, you can check that out. I think this pen is not worth it for everyone. If you really want to have it, then clearly it is worth it, but it doesn't have a larger ink capacity, it doesn't have a smoother nib, it doesn't have anything that the macrolon version does have. It's just different and cool. Now, I could go on like this for quite a while, but I think the simplest thing to do is just show you how the two pens write. So next up is a writing sample. I hope that's going to be useful, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye. Okay, so here we have a Lamy 2000 and a Lamy 2000M in metal, with a bit of an ink spot on there. You know, in these shootouts I like to show you how to take pens apart, so with the 2000 it's fairly simple, but you have to be a little careful with some items. You can just unscrew the section, and here you have the nib and the feed unit. The feed is in there. What you can do, I always use my nail for that, you just gently push the nib and feed unit out, like that. Now one thing you have to be careful about is that you have a little O-ring right there. If you lose that and you tighten the pen, it may crack. At least that's what I've understood. So be careful you don't lose it. Then you have the nib. The nib comes off. Be careful because this looks like it could actually break off. But you know, just be a little careful. Then we have the piston unit, which in fact, be careful again, but just keep opening it up, and then out comes, I guess this would be a piston guiding unit and the piston turning knob, and out somewhere in there is the piston. Now what you can do is take some kind of tool. I always use a bit of an old chopstick, with just wood, and you can carefully put it in there in the back of the section, and you can push out the piston, which is very useful because like this you can add some extra silicone grease to the piston seal. This again I think is a piston guiding unit, which makes sure that in the barrel the piston doesn't move around like that, you see. Now getting that back in is a little difficult sometimes. Now it just flies in, but just go slow, be careful and go slow. Carefully put that back in, allow it to slip in there, and you should be done. Now when you forget which end goes in here, it's actually very easy. This end, it only actually fits in one way, I think. So if you do it the other way around, then this sticks out, and that's not the way it should be. So then it should be the other way, and you should be fine. Oh, it still sticks out. Well, it doesn't really matter then. But still, I think this end goes in there. Yeah, oh, that's how you saw it. That's where it doesn't fit. Sorry, I was confused for a second. So this way it fits into the piston turning knob with that weird thing protruding, and on this side it just doesn't fit. So that's how you can always figure that out, again, should you want to take it apart. Now taking pens apart is always a little bit of a risk, right? If you can't put it back together, then you have a problem. So if you're going to do this, make sure that you are comfortable doing so, and don't do it just, you know, to look tough or something. You can put this back in. Make sure to give it a gentle push so that it's at the back of the feed. Then you can put it back in there. So, very functional pen, easy to take apart. And when it comes to the metal version, it's basically the same pen, isn't it? So, you can uncap it, carefully unscrew the section. It's a lot heavier. Same thing here. Use your thumbnail. There you go. Again, that little rubber O-ring, you see it? You can take it off. Be careful with that. A nib. This is a broad, the other one was a oblique broad, but I think they're interchangeable. I haven't tried it, but I mean it's the same pen basically, so I guess so. The section, and again, the piston unit. Just open it up. It's a little more difficult with this pen. Careful. This doesn't give a whole lot of resistance to open it up. Out comes this thing again. Now we know which end goes where, right? It fits that way, it doesn't fit the other way. I guess that's the same for this pen too. Yes, it is. Take your old chopstick or whatever. Carefully push out the unit. Is this actually... Yeah, this feels a little soft. Be careful you don't use something like a crochet needle or something, because this piston, it feels like it's a little soft right there. So if you take a metal object, you may puncture this part of the piston. That would be a real pity, because then you have to buy a new one. We put that back in. Put this back in as far as that's possible. So at this moment, if things don't immediately fit, don't panic, right? I mean, it came apart, so you can put it back together again. Just take a deep breath, take a couple of tranquilizers, and you should be fine. You put this back in. There we go, Nanny. Now, these dog ears. Oh yeah, I should tell you that. Be careful about this part. Sorry, I nearly missed that. Thank heaven I saw that. This can get lost easily. If this gets lost, you have a problem, because this will still fit, but the cap will no longer be retained. It will fall off. So be careful about the dog ears. Just a little metal ring. It fits into the barrel. There are two little notches. Can you see those little notches? And that's where you put this in. Put this in too. Grammar. Now there is this little trick, but I haven't figured it out yet. Has to be some kind of trick. Whoops, got misaligned. So when that happens, now the dog ear doesn't really fit, you just take a couple more tranquilizers and you take it easy. Frustrated sigh. There we go, it's back in there. Now, of course, there should be one way, because when you get the pen, the dog ears are on either side of the nib. Right, so it's very nicely aligned. Right now, they're sort of on top and over the nib, so you can probably fiddle around with that a bit if you really want to get stuff aligned well. For me, it doesn't really matter so much, because those dog ears don't interfere with my writing. So that's all there's to it. Now, what we have to do is do a bit of a writing sample. Inking up the pens. I'm using Waterman Florida Blue. Nice ink, works well, well behaved. That was the regular 2000. Here's the 2000M. Sorry about blinding me with your hand, blinding you with my hand. There we are, inked up, ready to go. Just wipe off the barrel. And we'll do writing sound. So here we have, in the left corner, Lamy 2000 in oblique broad. In the right corner, adjusting the light a little bit, in the right corner, Lamy 2000 broad, not oblique. Writing. The Quick Brown 2000 was made of macrolon. Actually, it's not brown at all, but you'll get the point. The Slow 2000M was made of bulletproof steel, for as far as such a thing exists. I should have said Kevlar, shouldn't I? Well, whatever. That's what it feels like. It's a really heavy pen. It's amazing. So, what about the performance of the nibs? Well, both nibs are great. Now that I've written in this one a bit, I think it's great. This is an oblique, giving you quite some line variation. Obliques not always do that, but I think this one gives you a bit of it. If you compare that to this, where you still get line variation. I think both of these nibs are surprisingly flexible. Now, you cannot expect a full flex nib, but if you look at this, then you'll definitely see some over average, we call that above average line variation, right? Well, with the Macrolon version, again, I think it's the same nib, right? It's just this is an oblique broad, this is a broad, but it's not a different nib. They're both gold. This one seems to give a little less line variation, but I think that's because of the obliqueness. It's just cut at an angle, so it's not as easy to open up with flex. So wetness, well, both nibs are pretty wet. I enjoy that. Very smooth. What I noticed with the 2000M's nib is that it sings. It makes a type of squeaky noise that not everyone cares for, but it's considered to be the sign of a good nib, and I think it's beautiful. I'm not sure whether I can make it do it, but you should hear some squeaky sound. Now, it wasn't very pronounced, but it was there. So in any case, two nibs, two pens, basically the same pen, but in different finishes. I think they're both fantastic. If you're willing to spend quite a bit of money, I think the metal version is awesome, but be prepared to get a very heavy pen. And not everyone cares for that. If you don't need that, then the regular 2000 is going to be perfectly fine. I think it has the same ink capacity, but you know, it's pretty much the same pen, except it's not metal. It's a lot lighter, but it's a great pen. So two very, very nice pens. I hope this was useful, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.